Smart 24, driving business.
Hello there and a very good morning. Thank you so much for tuning in and for watching Smart 24 TV. My name is Anthony and this is Financial Markets. Financial Markets is proudly brought to you by Altex East Africa, your number one private stock exchange, and can do something new. Altex says you can now buy treasury bonds in East African countries, Kenya, Uganda and Tanzania using your mobile money. Simply grab your phone and dial *292# and you will be able to access the markets using your mobile money. Also, with dialing *292#, you will be able to learn more about the products, including the exchange traded fund and the treasury bond market under the ZABU initiative. Altex East Africa is regulated by the Capital Markets Authority of Uganda, and they are the proud sponsors of this show. Altex East Africa is, of course, now giving you convenience, affordability, and accessibility to the market, with giving you, of course, as little as 15,000 shillings allowance for you to start with in your investment. You can, of course, start trading with Altex from 15 minutes past 8 a.m. all the way up to 15 minutes past 3 p.m. East African Standard Time. Altex East Africa, you can do something new. Of course, it's a Monday and it's the 17th of July, and a lot, of course, ahead is coming up on the show. One of the things we're going to be looking at today in the show is Safaricom's annual general meeting, which is slated for the 28th of July, just a couple of weeks away from now, and we're going to be discussing some of their initiatives and some of the strategies that are pending shareholders approval on the annual general meeting. We'll also be looking into the stock performance of the Nairobi Stock Exchange generally speaking. In the last 2 quarters, we are already actually in the third quarter of the year 2023. What has the first and second quarter been like at Nairobi Securities Exchange? Well, we'll also be looking at, first of all, the Uganda Stock Exchange and how the market performance managed 8 points on the all-share index. Remember, on the Uganda Stock Exchange, we have 2 indices that give us the aggregate performance of stocks or stock performances on the exchange. Number one is the all-share index, and this all-share index tracks all the 18 companies and gives us the aggregate performance of all the 18 stocks, whereas the local company index tracks the aggregate performance of the 10 domestic listings on the Ugandan market. Now, when you look at the 1 week performance, it has improved generally. Over the last 1 week, we have a 1.59 gain on our all-share index, whereas on our 4-week performance went 1.8%, which is also slightly reducing, and the overall year-to-date loss has still remained quite high at 14.35% as per the closure of trade on the 14th of July. However, speaking of the gainers here on the market, Equity Bank Limited led the gainers at a 2.13 price depreciation, 2.13%. And Equity Bank Limited closed off the day at 1,102.88 Ugandan shillings on the market. Currently, the company is the number one most valuable on the market. Remember, just a few days ago, we had the MTN company actually overtake Equity Bank Limited in as far as the stocks are concerned. But currently, Equity Bank Limited is now on top of the valuable companies, the most valuable companies. Remember, we grade companies depending on, first of all, how much money or market capitalization the shares are worth on the exchange. So when you look at current figures, Equity Bank Limited has a stock of 4.08 trillion Ugandan shillings, which is the highest value so far, peak capitalization on the market. Equity Bank Limited has 3.7 billion shares, performing so well in terms of year-to-date performance. For example, Stanbic Bank is at a 23.8% gain, and at a much smaller price of 26 Ugandan shillings, the stock seems more affordable. But of course, market capitalization is lower because of definitely the lower pricing at 1.33 trillion Ugandan shillings at Stanbic Bank Uganda. KCB Group as well. KCB is performing relatively poorly compared to Equity Bank Limited with a 34% depreciation in the year-to-date performance. That means at least the stock is doing better in a comparison to KCB Group, cross-listed counterpart from Nairobi Securities Exchange. And then Bank of Baroda Uganda is performing quite not so well as well at 82.3% year-to-date performance. This is a loss due to mainly their bonus issue that was issued on the 7th of June in this year, where they were issuing extra 12.5 billion shares at 10 Ugandan shillings to be able to meet the minimum capital requirements as per Bank of Uganda regulations and guidelines. That, of course, saw the company's price drop very fast from averages of 85 shillings to now currently 14, 16 on average per day. That is Bank of Baroda Uganda. So you can see, and one thing you should know is a company that's not participating in trade, even the gains there are in the company's stock don't make sense, a lot of sense, because you understand they're not coming from the investor's point of view or the investor's sentiments or what the investors are thinking about the company. Basically, the company is being rocked about, the company's price is being rocked about because of the external factors like inflation and the selling rates, as well as foreign exchange rates and so many other things, which we have seen on a couple of cross-listed counters in the past. And that is exactly what is happening at Equity Bank Limited. Now, another gainer was East African Breweries Limited. East African Breweries Limited at least added a value of 0.94% to their price, closing off the day at 4,197 Ugandan shillings. KCB Group added 0.19% and closed off the day at 755.15 Ugandan shillings. Now, MTN Uganda was the only domestic listing that gained value on Friday at a slight gain of 0.0%, improving to a price of 170 shillings. Now, MTN 100 billion because equity is valued at 4.1 trillion, and when you look at MTN, it's at 3.81 trillion, and yet MTN has been active. So who would you choose? How would you make a choice between these two companies in as far as your investment or your portfolio is concerned? For you, on the losing side, we had a couple of stocks. We had 4 in number, mainly, of course, all of them being cross listings, with Jubilee Holdings Limited coming in at the bottom at a loss of 0.15%. Jubilee Holdings closed off the day at 4,917 Ugandan shillings, whereas they are today at a 0.15% depreciation as well, ending the day with 519.0 Ugandan shillings. Centum Investments also followed suit with a loss of 0.15%, down to 233.03 Ugandan shillings. Kenya 0.15% to 99.09 Ugandan shillings. Now, besides MTN, the other participant in the market was Wumeme, and Wumeme recorded at least 53 shares and 20.0 or gain for the company. Trading is concerned on Friday. MTN accrued a total value of just 22,000 Ugandan shillings from this trade, and MTN continues to be in the 3rd position now on in terms of the most traded on stocks on the Uganda Stock Exchange in the last 3 months. Over the period, at least over 27.7 million shares have been traded at Wumeme, valued at 11.9 billion. Last Friday, I remember we shared about the quarterly bulletin, rather the monthly bulletin that was released by Uganda Securities Exchange for the month of April, and Wumeme, Stanbic and MTN continue to be the top companies in as far as participation in trade is concerned on the Uganda Stock Exchange. That is the current status of the cross and domestic listings on the Uganda Stock Exchange. You can trade on Uganda Stock Exchange simply by opening an SCD account, and if you don't know how to do this, you can visit the portal of the Uganda Securities Exchange, use.org.com. When you do so, you will be able to find a very definitive description of how you can be able to open an account. You cannot trade without an account, and you will also find out that the process is entirely free of charge, so you don't even need an initial deposit on your account in the first place to create one. So you can do it just right now. And if you are using an MTN line, you can still dial *165 *57 hash and be able to follow the prompts and register using your national identification number or your national ID there on the USSD code *165 *57 hash. That's it from Uganda Stock Exchange. Allow me to cross over to Nairobi Securities Exchange, where we have our major story on Safaricom, which is going to be holding their annual general meeting on the 28th of July 2023. Now, the Nairobi Stock Exchange saw at least over about 48 listings participating in trade on the Nairobi Securities Exchange on Friday. The day ended with 24 gainers and 17 losers. A pretty interesting performance. However, the All-Share Index still declined by 0.27 points, down to 113.93 points. A very slight loss is at 2.3% as per performance last week, and 4-week gain is at 13.52% dip appreciation, whereas the overall year-to-date loss has also contracted to 10.62%. The Kenyan market is becoming more and more exciting, and ahead of Safaricom's annual general meeting, there's a lot to expect, and a lot, of course, of approvals that are awaiting the shareholders of Safaricom. The top gainer for Friday was Unga Group at a 9.76% appreciation in price, closing of the day at 18.55 Uganda shillings per share, whereas East African Portland Cement Company at least added 9.69%, and at least added 9.64%, and Wumeme added 7.69%. Yet Wumeme continues to rally the market in Nairobi as well, with various improvements in trade. On the losing side, however, Total Kenya performed poorly with a loss of 4.94%. That was depreciating to 19.25 Kenyan shillings. Uchumi Supermarket also lost 3.85%, whereas Standard Group, media house there, basically dealing in printed media, also lost 3.38%, and Kapchora Tea Company also lost about, as a Kenya Power and Lighting Company, at over 5 points recorded. Group million were 0.82 million shares. The fourth place actually at 930,500. Safaricom stock. Before the annual general meeting, how has the stock? What are the expectations of share? General. Now, among the that are expected in Safari slated for the is the incorporation investment fund limited company into a private limited subsidiary that and Development stage startups in Kenya. Now, further, the board has also put forward a proposal, Ethiopia, which will house and provide mobile financial services within Ethiopia. The subsidiary will be fully owned by Safaricom Ethiopia, and while Safaricom Public Limited Company is expected to indirectly control more than about 50% of Safaricom's M-Pesa Ethiopia. Now, Safaricom M-Pesa Ethiopia will also face competition, especially from Telebir in Ethiopia, which is a mobile money services company by state-owned Ethio Telecom. So something you should be noting in the annual general meeting. Safaricom will also pay Vodafone Holdings a nominal cash consideration of $1 for the transaction as an M-Pesa holding there in Ethiopia, and as a trust company, as well as a must transfer in terms of transactions within Ethiopia and transactions on the Kenyan market. That's the stories coming in from Kenya there. We await anxiously for that annual general meeting and see if shareholders will be approving of some of these resolutions, as of course set by the board of directors at Safaricom. Safaricom's current price is 19.45 Ugandan shillings, and this is after Friday's gain of about 0.25. There you have it, my friend. For watching Smart 24 TV. Remember, the show is brought to you by Altex East Africa, and with Altex you can buy and sell treasury bonds across East Africa using your phone. Simply grab your phone and dial *292# and follow the prompts. You will be able to, first of all, learn more about the products at Altex, but also be able to transfer funds of your mobile money into Altex East Africa trading. Altex East Africa is regulated by Markets Authority. And that's it, my friend, for today. We are going to meet again tomorrow, and tomorrow we have a very special edition of the show. We'll be hosting Dollar Capital here on the show, and we'll be talking about the trade, the brokerage in terms of forex trading. We'll also be talking about what are some of the risks that are involved with dealing with brokers, and how can you avert some of those risks. We'll be looking at the different types of brokers, who is licensed, how you know whether someone is licensed, of course, to diversify your portfolio using the best brokers in the land. And that's it, my friend. Thank you so much once again for tuning in and for what is coming your way. Have a wonderful day. Bye for now.
Smart 24